everybody, good evening. It's Saturday night. This is Phil. My pen name is P. Francis McNichol. My friends call me Phil. You can call me anything you like. I just don't want to hear it. So anyways, I'm doing a reading tonight, more on the horror side, and I can talk about its, I want to say its history so far in the last week, at least a full 8 to 9 days, working 5 of those days interrupted. And so I basically jotted down some verse, and I was like, man, I know these words. How come they're not coming out of me? I was in between work, studying, home, and our trip. Safe hour trip home this time, a lot less stressful. And so I look forward to this reading because I did some work with it the last 24 hours in particular, and I'm somewhat proud of it in general because I like to do the long poems. I like to do something where someone can sit there and read it and kind of do their own tongue twisters in their mind, even better than I can speak it. Okay, and they're my words. And yes, there is research in those words. When I revamp it, I polish it up a little. And I still made a little amount of adjustments here and there. And I enjoyed it. The theme is basically the murdering spouse, whether husband or wife, doing their dirty deeds, and then the end of their, let's say, I want to say a generation, and the children left, and the children might not be in the picture at all anymore. Okay, not boo hiss for the main character, but the main character is spiraling into madness. And so that is what I'm trying to accomplish with that horror, with the ghost coming back. Is it all in his mind, or is there actual things going on that is driving him crazy? Okay. And I'm sorry for my earlier technical difficulties. I'm not trying to run a business doing this. I do want to write professionally, be paid for it, do my long game. I've been listening to some horror channels on YouTube where they tell a story, historically speaking, and horrific things that happened at certain occurrences and what have you. And I like some of it, but, and I'm not even trying to critique, the channels, but when I'm bedding down and I want something off in the background and I want to listen to something and I'm just chilling out, it's more enjoyable for me to listen to YouTube than it is to even watch TV. And especially when it's the latter part of the night and I'm tired, and I like to hear some good stories, but they're free on YouTube. And I kind of get this impression that some people, especially with English accents, where they use AI for those words, okay, for the whole dialogue, what they type in, they do it in, I want to say a sentence at a time. And so each period cues the AI program to stop and I want to say describe everything they're talking, and they wrote down perhaps, or everything their dictaphone recording. And I'm like, I can tell that is an AI voice. I can tell there's assistance there. And with storytelling in general, there are better storytellers that keep it simple and go, I want to say they lead up, they build up, they put little pieces here where you know what you're going to get eventually, and they culminate up here where you can enjoy what you're really experiencing, because it's not too tricky, Dick. It's not too O. Henry ending. Okay. And whatever the sayings are in the writing field, there are many sayings. There's many different cues people go by. And it's not always just computers. Like, I send a draft to someone and they put it through the computer and say, how many times was this word used? Okay, because I noticed it a couple of times, maybe too much the first chapter. They do that. And then they don't take into account the art part of it, like you're being repetitive on purpose. And it's not often you're going to use the word after the second, third chapter. Okay? And you might come back to it at the end, and it might have some more substance to it, or why it was used in supporting your work. But they will actually count words. Not the amount of words in a work, but the different words you have, they'll put it in there. How many times was this word used? And they think that's cheap. They think that's inexperience. And it's not. It really isn't, especially when you remember those words and you pace it out in your flow. Well, on YouTube, there's a lot of great storytellers, and I hope that some of them I listen to, I want to say Appalachian channels and stuff like that, and the history of the people in Appalachia in America's time. They have some country voices, and I don't know what kind of sound system they have where it's enhanced or what have you, but very drawl, a very accented voice. And with that drawl, and it's like, I can listen to that stuff because the content is interesting and it's a good story in the way they present it. And I like that. Okay? They're their own storytellers. However, when you're writing print, you can go so many different ways. You can do a slow, gradual build-up. You can start out with one scene, like blowing everybody's mind. And then, like, how the hell did that just happen? And then the rest of the book culminates in all these little bits and pieces that added up to that first chapter. And then at the end, you have the end of that first chapter with a better light than you were expecting. Okay. So there's so many different ways to write, and there are better people that do their own work than AI generated stuff. They typed it down and they had an AI program voice it. And I don't know if that's the case with everything, but I think it is with a few. And it's like, they're still good, but just because you have an English accent doesn't mean what you're saying is that good. It's not necessarily the best, because you can tell by the words ending in one sentence and then the beginning of another paragraph. But they're close together, so there's not that, I want to say, leading pause. That nice exchange, yes, but that pause. That's like, writers, you better stand up and say no AI, or you're going to be extincted for your art. And your art, trust me, is better because it comes from the human mind and the human heart. Not some computer that just sits there and analyzes all the best words that sound the best. Okay? Not the enhanced things you write, but then it's verbalized too. So it sounds nice with an English voice. No problem with our brothers and sisters in England. I'm referring to the accent and some things in America, which people believe is more rich, okay, and with substance, just because of an English accent per se. And I think it's AI driven. Okay, it's a voice that's AI invented, and it doesn't make it any smarter or better. I was listening, and the point of my story is I was listening to one story. It was 3 hours, and I don't think I'll even listen to it again. not that part, but the channel itself, the sub. I'm a sub because okay. So the channel itself, because there were so many metaphors in it. It's like everything was a metaphor. Everything was a metaphor. Everything was a metaphor. Every sentence was a metaphor, leading up to basically saying that during the Victorian era, this was about horrors and sex during the Victorian era and how it used to be. Okay, especially tough for women to be proper, wearing their nice dress and at a party, social, or what have you, sitting and looking demure and not speaking unless you're spoken to. Okay, that kind of feel. And it didn't get to any of the gratuitous sex part or horror part. And it just kept on going. And it went from one situation to another, such as ladies wanting to wash up, okay, would usually have to have permission from a man, but there would be this kabuki hut that would be lowered into the water or pushed into the water on the seaside. And in the surf, she would be in there and she would wash up in there. But that whole kabuki theater, okay, in that hut was so she couldn't be seen and her virtue is intact. But they went around forever talking about it in metaphor, leading up to something like that as one instance. And then they went to another thing, like a party or a dinner social. It was like, and you'd have to have a call-in card sent to her father before, you could meet up with her in the bright hours of the day. So it didn't appear like anything untoward was going on. I was like, all those metaphors led up to a bunch of bullshit and clickbait. And that was AI. And I was like, I know it was AI because I read the comments. And then they were talking, the comments themselves were just describing how some of that shit was bullshit because it was AI and it wasn't as good as it was let on to be. And so I'm like, I don't want perfect poetry. I want poetry that is smooth and it delivers a message. With that, there might be inspiration in my own heart, my own soul. My mind might say, hey, that is fascinating. And everything is just lit on fire because it was a good piece of work by a real person. And I strive to be that. I strive to be complimented once in a while when someone says, hey, you can't do AI stuff here. It's like, are you serious? Are you giving me an offhanded compliment, or are you trying to criticize me and intimidate me off my space, my joke, my space? Okay, that's what they did in 2010 in MySpace days. You shouldn't be doing that on Facebook. You should be professional enough to have some criticism. But when you get to me personally and attack me personally and not the work, yeah, you can say, you ought to try this. You ought to try that. But then when you say, oh, yeah, you're just a freaking, wannabe, or you attack me personally without critiquing the work, that's where I have a problem. I'm like, now go fuck yourself very much. So anyways, I hope I don't have any more problems as I'm sitting here bloviating, wasting the evening away. Free Alex Jones. This is my shirt. I like to wear it. It's so comfortable. Over the years, I've had this shirt. 2026 now. Maybe had this for 10 years now. Maybe 8 years or so. I'm going to do a reading and get into some of the philosophy of writing. If not, do's and don'ts, some do's and don'ts, the words in particular, with some specificity. Maybe one day I'll have an honorary English degree with all the research I do, when I do sit down and actually work on something, and I swear, not this long, perhaps, but a short story longer than this per word, of course. I can do a short story a day. I have no problem with. I don't know the actual amounts of words, 250 words per page, and so I would estimate 10-page to 15-page short story, maybe 20 pages a day, and that's proofed. When it comes to poetry, and I'm just doodling because of work, these longer poems I like to do because they're like a story, and so I want to be unique that way and do it my way with a long story, but it's all poetic verse and couplets. One line says one thing, the second line rhymes with it. So this is quiet. The title I might even change to, because that's exactly what I want, but it doesn't sound nice. Quiet Insanity of a Wet Brain's Epiphany. So I wrote that, and I was like, yeah, it's going to stand for now. Because anybody that reads that and knows anything about alcoholism or had trouble with it, whether they were victims of alcoholism or the alcoholic was their own victim because they were alcoholic, and you heard these terms before, hey, that means something. Someone is going insane here. And I can't put my head on other people's heads to discuss alcoholism, how slow and insidious it is. But it is. When they say it's cunning, baffling, powerful, it is, because it takes over the mind. And I feel like I've been quenched away from that since 2005. And the horror it brings just from memories. All you need is a couple horrific memories during a couple times those instances you drink. And then every time you drink, when you get a little bit older and older and older and older, they resurface every time you drink. Okay? And there's nothing your mind can do about it. So if you think you're going to drink away your woes, wake up the next day with a hangover and feel better, you're not. Those woes in the throes are still going to be there. And so quiet insanity is that insanity part. It's quiet, but it's painful. You think of the death involved with that alcoholism, as a police officer, and you think of just negative things that occurred. It doesn't have to be necessarily a death. It's just losing a girlfriend to somebody else, losing a girlfriend in general, okay? Losing your child because of the A word is traumatic enough. And you drink, and those memories come back. It's like reliving everything all over again. So I wanted something simple, quiet insanity. And a wet brain's epiphany. The wet brain is a certain point where you need medication for your brain to work properly, or you're going to have a seizure and die. You're going to have a seizure and something might happen to your autonomic system and your heart stops beating. But wet brain is the process of your brain losing its elasticity and basically not functioning anymore. So you're either too much of a conduit in your brain and all the synapses firing off, or not enough. Okay, and your autonomic system with your central nervous system is just like, okay, what the hell we do in this situation? These electrolytes are not working. So this is a reading of Quiet Insanity and a Wet Brain's Epiphany. And Keep the Cursor Moving by P. Francis McNichol. So this is about 4 pages long. So bear with me. I'm going to try to read it as best as I can. A pale face in a setting sun. Hues of green skin take hold. Coasting through a memory of an emerald bustle fold. Hair as if an angel stares, old lanterns catching a glow, where she bathes with agile care, fragile legs to toes. The mirror shimmered as her tender breasts heaved, when the porcelain simmered lust, a kind caress believed. Flashes of a soiled cuff, warm ambiance, salt bereaved, as slashes in a shallow tub, sullied, sloshing sleeves. Footsteps heard in the gilded loo, giggles of echoes too. Doors were olden through, as hinges croaked a clue. Down the halls in dark hollows, two silhouettes distinct. I swear I felt her follow, when I may have blinked. Drops drip oh so very slow, as whispers come and go. No one to find my Irish rose and bow, I propose. Come the blight of many night, the moon my merry friend. I'd climb the glary flights, cherry walls to mend. Through the corridors I sing, trying replace my evil choice, muffling her scraping dings in baffled japing voice. A lost bat rattled about, squirrels fatigued by early dawn, with a rat crouched beside me on the couch who yawned. I remembered how my kind endeavors were deferred when I dismembered the bastard too, alabaster stirred. With wee slow gin and tea heated in a sunbeam toddy. I forgot a lot about the spot where I socked the bodies. Sun rays in their blaze warmed my bones and paws, multiplying rats gnawing on me, guffawing applause. The mice imbibed my gin, the vermin in the couch. But I was sore the more the mice engorged, I vouch. In the dusty den I stretched my fusty feet abrupt, and mused my house a lair, the mice declaring more cups. I asked the sun, what have I become? The vermin entertained. As rats stole my rum, I dribble in gruel and liquid grain. Bulging warts in pulsing spurts squirt clop out of craters as boils popped and sputum shot like a percolator. I was quite livid, these avid parasites, instigators. My infested face a mere debased cheese grater. The grim estate turned a darkened fate as I loudly snored, going in and out of altered states, my buttocks gored. Then she neared as the dusk appeared, effusing slimy worms, followed by the gardener fellow with his tallow perm. The aromas were unique, the stink of a bleak roadkill kind. Both putrid meat on my love seat, as if I shouldn't mind. I'll devour you whole before you know I own your soul, she said. And wherever you go, that's where we'll flow until your marrows bled. What a pickle pecked, paralysis at my prickled back. Floozy rose, spewing a clue of goo from her mucose rack. TBC to be continued. So that was 4 pages, basically, of Quiet Insanity and the Wet Brains Epiphany. And by the grace of God, I don't feel the need to ever drink liquor or beer or any kind of alcohol again, because I made a decision a long time ago that I love writing more, and I don't want to work towards that slow death. My brain slowly dying with Wet Brains Epiphany. It's caution to some of you drinkers out there. Enjoy yourself. Rejoice. And what's the saying? Rejoice, O ye young man, in thy youth. And people out there, and ladies too, rejoice. Enjoy. Don't let it get a hold of you. Don't let the negative build up so you want to drink more. And then you incorporate them both together, so every time you drink, it's negative. Every time. There's no getting out of it. It's progressive too. So I was coming from that kind of psychology in general. Here the patriarchy was cheated upon. His wife cheated on him. And I'm going to leave a little more inference with the gardener. Some of the words, I don't know if I hit it, some words right the first time. Some words I might have switched. We can go over some of them. First couple. The first line, pale face in a setting sun, hues of green skin take hold. I changed that initially a couple days after I wrote it in the first 4 or 5 lines. And I was like, I wanted it a little more smoother than that. Coasting through a memory of an emerald bustle fold. Ladies with bustles, beautiful thing. That's all I'm saying. Hair as if an angel stares, olden lanterns catching a glow. Here I wanted to leave that the lights are out. And so it's kind of olden. It's an old castle or a house or estate, what have you. So I wanted old lanterns in there. So it's kind of like a digressing. Maybe he doesn't have that much money in this big estate. So he'll use lanterns walking around at night, checking out the hallways, the corridors. Agile care and vagal legs to toes. Vagal is a word. No, it's not a bad word. Please look it up. I want to say smooth, long, and slender. Right off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember the exact definition. I might stand corrected, but it was what works there, and it's the word I wanted. I redid the mirror shimmered as her tender breasts heave. That was all over the place, where the pivot point of the sentence was mirror, not shimmered. Okay, the shimmering mirror or something to that effect. The rhyming word was heaved. Okay, and it was the start of a new couplet. And so that was going to be my rhyming first sentence, and just putting a whole bunch of new rhymes in there that not everybody does that often, like heaved, believed, bereaved, in sleeves. Okay, to me it all works. And so I took that into account and I rearranged that first word because the pivot point with the shimmering mirror and how it came around was not what I wanted. I didn't want the mirror there because the mirror is harder to rhyme in the second sentence of the couplet at that pivot point halfway through the sentence. And so I wanted some symmetry to there, even though a lot of the beginning of both sentences or both verses didn't rhyme with each other. The end part did, and it makes sense. And it was building the picture. It was building the plot. Visually, the mirror shimmered as her tender breasts heaved. You can imagine being in with your significant other, reverse the roles, if you will. I'm a man, so I'm thinking of a beautiful lady in a nice old porcelain tub, and that's where the negative thing occurred. Okay, somebody became unalived. All right, porcelain simmered lust. Try to have some words that were similar, shimmered in the first verse, and when the porcelain simmered lust. And I just wanted to keep it simple with the lust word. I didn't want to make that another rhyme within a rhyme in the second verse of the couplet. So ambiance can be overused sometimes. Not so much on Facebook, but when I see professional writing, and I know that they're a ringer and they're an actual writer, and trust me, there's many people out there that can write really well, and they don't do it early at all. They have different jobs. It's like that guy, that girl could be a ringer because they just know what they're saying, and it's just perfect. Perfect word placement. Ambiance, yeah. As slashes in a shallow tub sullied sloshing sleeves. I wanted to do kind of tongue twister stuff that didn't sound harsh. A lot of stopping T sounds. I'll swear to my dying day as an avid author and professional writer, man, stay away from those hard-sounding T's. If you got to put it in there, you got to put it in there. I get it, because there's nothing else you can use. Footsteps is at the beginning of a verse. Footsteps heard in the gilded loo, giggles of echoes too. I wanted to start showing that they're harassing the main character, the antagonist, the bad guy. But the ghosts are really the antagonist, generally speaking. But the bad guy is this crazy guy going insane. Olden, I've used that word a few times. I wanted to give it that older feel using the old word, saying olden. Doors were olden through, meaning they're old. All the way through them. They're old, they're rickety. They make this sound. The hinges croak to clue. Okay? A breeze through an old house, and you hear an old door going, making that creaking sound. It's like some simple rhymes and words. Down the halls in dark hollows, two silhouettes distinct. I was looking for, it wasn't the description I had a problem with. I wanted to keep it within a shorter stanza, a shorter verse, a sentence fragment, if you will. And so down the halls in the dark hollows, I wanted to keep it like you're looking down hallways and it turns dark into nothing after a while. Okay? And so at nighttime, you're looking down the hallway, you might have some light where you are, and it just goes down and down and down, and no light. Hollows, literarily speaking, used a lot to show the hollows. I was like, down in the moors, down in the hollers. You'll say the hollows. I swear I felt her follow when I may have blinked. Wanted to keep it simple. Drops drip oh so very slow as whispers come and go. So I wanted to keep it simple with the soft sounding O sound of go, slow, oh so. P can be a hard sound too sometimes when you think of the word drop, drip, dripping. Dripping not so hard, okay, on the tongue to use, okay? But as those single syllable words, they can be. No one to find my Irish Rose. I used her name before, I believe, in other horror poems, actually. Denoting a lady named Rose, and she's of Irish descent. She's actually Irish. So I said, my Irish Rose. I believe I was allowed to put capital I for Irish, and Rose, and bow, meaning her bow. I propose. So yeah, there I propose. I use suppose, kind of like he's unsure of himself before. And I wanted something more direct, like I propose. Telling you. Killed the bitch. she's hidden somewhere. Don't worry about it. But she's the one that keeps on coming back and harassing me for the bad deeds I've done. So is it in my mind or is it a real ghost? Climb the glary flights. I wanted some rhyme there. Interverse. The glary flights, cherry walls to mend. Those nice varnished walls that are like cherry wood, like halfway up, and they have like a little tiny banister, but it's on the wall, okay? So it's a two-tone wall, and that nice cherry wood look. I was using my own, I was like, walnut wood, cherry wood walls. I was like, nah, I'm not going to make it more difficult and use it just cherry walls to mend. I believe does the job, and it worked for me. I looked up some rhyming words. Glary came to mind. Shiny steps, shiny walls also. So I put it close together where maybe there's a picture there. I had the picture and I saw it. I hope other people see it too. But glary comes from the root glare, shiny, a gloss. I'd climb the glary flights. One thing about poetry is should, would, could. I try to minimize them. If I make it into 2 syllables, so it's not would not, could not, should not, okay, then I would do an I'd, I apostrophe D, okay, and we can get in a bad habit of saying wouldn't all the time or shouldn't all the time, couldn't all the time. But that D sound is a harsher D sound that could slow things down. So I kept it simple. I'd climb the glary flights, cherry walls to mend. Through the corridors I sing, trying to replace my evil choice. Okay, I wrote this because you ever hear a bunch of people talking bad about someone, and then you start humming while you're doing your own thing because you don't want to hear them, and it's kind of nerve-wracking or it's like, oh no, I know I'm going to hear something where someone really gets hurt, or they're getting fired, or they already had something bad happen to them because these people are talking about them, and I don't want to hear it because it really doesn't affect me, but it is scary to hear what they're about to say, and you might as well not listen to it. Okay, that's the impression I was trying to get in that verse. Through the corridors I sing, trying to replace my evil choice, muffling her scraping dings and baffled japing voice. I loved rewriting the muffling her scraping dings. I had the muffled word in there at one time. I had the muzzling word in there one time, and I'm like, all these syllables. It's like, I don't need that many. And then when I looked at the simplicity at a different window, when I was like looking at it in one of the Facebook comments, or where I posted it, I was like, I don't need that. Baffled is a word. A word, the beautiful word. Baffled. Like a baffled exhaust pipe. It works. It works. And baffled, japing voice. Japing is screaming, loud, screeching. Okay, so that baffled, japing voice has a couple connotations to there. It's baffled, as in her mouth is covered and she's, yelling the best she can. Okay, making all this noise. Muffling her scraping digs. That's closing the wall. And he's hearing her yell and scream with a covered voice. And she's also baffled that it's occurring to her. Double meanings there. So it worked. And I was like, okay, I like that. A lost bat rattled about. We've all seen them in homes. Squirrels fatigued by early dawn. Squirrels always make a lot of noise in the attic. With a rat crouched beside me on the couch, who yawned. So besides Fievel, what was that other, was it Big Ben? Or Ben? What was that other rat that was sitting there driving a guy insane? And I don't think it was a Stephen King novel or anything. But the one that just kept on looking, maybe it was 3D at one time. I don't know. I want to say Big Ben. Something like that, where a kid had a rat as a best friend, I think it was. And then the rats came, more and more rats came. Or the guy was just, whoever it was just looked at as like a loner. I mean, like a Jeffrey Dahmer type of crazy loner. And then the rats would eat or attack people. And he still loves them. Okay. That's not really in my history, but I remember that vaguely. So I thought of that, and I wanted to introduce the rats about to eat them. With a rat crouched beside me on the couch, who yawned. It's like, this is another day. You're going to lay down again and drink yourself to death. Okay, we're here to eat you. With a rat crouched beside me on the couch, who yawned. I remembered how my kind endeavors were deferred. Deferred I worked on. It worked better than the previous word I had. If I remember correctly, deferred, preferred. Don't remember the word I had first, but the deferred word is the proper word, and it works so much better. When I dismembered the bastard too, alabaster stirred. I was going to go into plaster of Paris, stirred, too many words, didn't want it that long. With wee slow gin, a little bit of slow gin. With wee slow gin and tea, heated in a sunbeam toddy. I forgot a lot about the spot where I socked the bodies. Trying to get to there, why he's going insane. Sun rays in their blaze warmed my bones and paws while he was taking a break. Multiplying rats gnawing on me. I just put in this verse, I put in O-N, on me, because multiplying rats gnawing me, guffawing applause. It just seemed too short and too trite. Okay, so I went direct and added that ON on in there. Multiplying rats gnawing on me, guffawing, applause. I was like, when I wrote that verse down the first time, I was like, I knew that word. What's that? Guffawing, guffawing, guffawing. You know, kind of like screaming out, kind of like applause itself, kind of like an outburst. The mice imbibed my gin, the vermin in the couch. I wanted to use some of the in runs with vermin, with gin, and that's kind of the interverse rhyme. But I was sore the more, the mice engorged, I vouch. So I had fun redoing those. Because I have an idea, I have a build up in my mind, but I know I'm doodling it. And I'm like, okay, I'll put it on Facebook. The reason why I put everything on Facebook and then I add to it is so I can see things in different fields. And when someone assembles all my work I've done on my phone, and I bet you it would be a bestseller like 20 times over. Seriously, it would be like 600 to 800 pages of just poetry. Poetry on Facebook is probably 400, 500 pages worth. But all my poems together are probably 600, 800 pages. And most of those earlier poems, too, were done on Facebook. And some things I just transfer over, and I keep on transferring over, and I keep on transferring over. I haven't transferred over hardly anything in a year, maybe 8 months, 9 months. I think I transferred one over 3 months ago, and that was the first time in like 5 to 6 months, because it was one I really wanted, and I wanted to make sure I could pull up a Blood Red Sea properly without the Google Word program doing something funky to it, where I have to pull it off of my God, what is it called? Google, not Google Docs, but basically where you have your stored written works, you have your stored paperwork that was sent to you in clips and stuff. Google Drive, a little symbol, and it's called Google Drive. I don't want to say hard drive. But, so looking at those different fields help. And then I know when I'm hitting it. I know even more so here because I can tell not only by the flow, but the length of each verse. I can tell. And I can tell that the spacing is perfect, it sounds perfect, and it's a perfect read. And I don't see how or why people would go by systematic syllable counts. And definitely because a lot of time that's narrowing down your art, and the words are supposed to do the work for you. You know? So if you're a wordsmith, like the saying is, then you should know that those words are there to assist you and do the work for you. Yes, your sequence is your brilliance. Okay? And that builds a perfect picture. It paints a perfect picture. Okay? But just doing it by syllables is like, well, you're not Shakespeare then. You're not doing what Shakespeare did. I'm not trying to be Shakespeare. Shakespeare, great author. Hey, we owe a lot to him in the English language. Okay, especially for Renaissance, let's just say. But my hero is Poe, and I like the longer game, and I like the words doing the picture placing, so to speak. The pixelating, but the picture placing. And muse my house a lair, the mice declaring more cups. I just wanted to keep it simple like that, and the mice gaining, again with that theme of vermin, basically sacking the big the big animal. The mice are attacking him. I asked the sun, what have I become? The vermin entertain. Yeah, so many of these I just kept simple. I wanted to try, not that I haven't before, but I like some sounds with multiple syllable rhymes at the end of the verse. And so I came to the conclusion with bulging warts and pulsing spurts, squirt, flop out of craters. Without craters word, I wanted to write something better. I wanted more syllables with that A-T-E-R sound, okay, or A-T-O-R sound. And I know there's quite a few words there that are more technical, that might have that more mechanical feel, okay, that can be a weapon perhaps, or it could be something we use every day in the kitchen, okay, like a cheese grater or the percolator, like the percolator coffee. And so these next 4 ones I did the first 2, and I'm like, I'm doing another 2 because I know I can, and I want that. I wanted it a little longer and just for a nice change instead of 1 syllable rhymes. So bulging warts and pulsing spurts squirt clop out of craters. I wanted to keep that simple. After I rearranged it some today and yesterday, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to change that at all. As boils popped and sputum shot like a percolator. I was quite livid these avid parasites, instigators. I used the quite word again. Just some repetition. It's not meant to be redundant. I don't remember where I use go slowly downward. But I made a conscious effort to stay away from quite, but with parasite, it kind of works. And that's what I was gestating on in general. And so you have to watch that. Sometimes the 1 syllable, same rhyme as a 3 syllable, do not sound good together or in the same sentence, multi-rhyme. I've heard on different cooking shows on Facebook and stuff, tallow, refined grease and stuff like that, when Ma or Pa or whoever's doing the video is showing they use the tallow and they wanted that greasy kind of feel for the gardener's hair. So then she neared as the dusk appeared, effusing slimy worms. Worms are coming out of her. Followed by the gardener fellow with his tallow perm. I knew it wasn't fallow. I used that in a couple of rhymes ago, or last rhyme, I think it was maybe. Fallow visage or fallow visage, I think it was, not fallow face. And so I knew it wasn't fallow. And I was like, I heard tallow before. How is it spelled? So I researched that word and I put it in there, the tallow perm. And I was like, yeah, that is the OW soft O sound I want with fellow. And followed kind of has that same syllable switch with the 2 L's, somewhat similar. It's not supposed to rhyme per se. The similarities are there, followed. It's not the word follow I used earlier in this poem. You can always use the different tenses of the word. It's just when you use the same word over and over again, as it is spelled, it might appear mundane. It might appear bush league. Okay. So I'm hoping I come up to that quite word again. I remember thinking, quite and parasites. So, okay, we're almost done here. The aromas were unique. The stink of bleak roadkill kind. The stink of a, God, I read it better, thank God, earlier. The aromas were unique. The stink of a bleak roadkill kind. I was looking for putrefaction and putrid and decaying and all these things that are overused, and they're used a lot. And so I kept it simple with bleak roadkill kind. The stink of a bleak roadkill kind. It's kind of tongue twister. The K is a hard sound, like the T's. And so you got to kind of be careful with that. Both putrid meat on my love seat. It's like, where did love seat go? I know there's other words for couch. God, I love the love seat visual. You know what I mean? Both putrid meat, both of the ghosts are putrid meat on my love seat, as if I shouldn't mind. I said, yeah, I'm going to put shouldn't in there. Didn't want to put wouldn't. And it just sounded better. And it sounds more, I want to say, grammatically correct. As if I wouldn't mind. As if I would not mind. Or as if I should not mind. Shouldn't just sounded like something someone would say smoother and off the cuff, off the tip of their tongue. So Rose is her own poet too. Put her in quotes. I like doing that occasionally. There's nothing saying you can't. And I kept it short and sweet. As I wrote it here, I'll get to this in a second, with the comma after she said, okay, because there's a continuation. And I'll get into another point in a second, because it's kind of it's not a debate. It's criticism I have of some other people. But I'll explain that in a second. I'll devour you whole before you know I own your soul. Along that nice, fast, but smoother words that are not the hard K sound or the hard T sound like pet or stop, and the hard P sound. Drip. Okay, so I'll devour. Devour is an often used word, like eat your soul. Okay, consume your soul. There's other words that are too common. You way use too much. So I just kept it simple. Devour usually has its own connotation. It's used often. I get it. I'll devour you whole before you know. I want to do some wordplay, the whole and soul play. With know and own, those soft O sounds. Your soul, she said. She said is the actual rhyming pivot into the second verse of the couplet here. So I had leeway with that to tinker with the inner quote there, okay, and make it somewhat flowing and, yes, similar. And your mind is like, hey, that sounds good. And I don't think it even rhymed, And so I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Because she said, or said, to be technical, is the pivot point for that rhyme. I'll devour you whole before you know I own your soul. Whole and soul are the rhyming words in that. And wherever you go, that's where we'll flow until your marrow's bled. So I have some inner rhyme there for that that second verse of the couplet. And wherever you go is going to rhyme with flow. That's where we'll, there's some tongue twisting there. It isn't too hard if you take your time and look at it. That's where we'll flow. We say it all the time, every day. You know, we'll do this, we'll do that. Okay? So I was like looking at it, I was like, where will? Yeah, works. Until your marrow's bled. So BLED, your marrow is bled out. You know, we're soul suckers and we're getting revenge on you. Okay? Bled rhymes with said. And she said. And this one I trailed off yesterday, and I polished it even more this morning. And then I was like, let me check out those definitions again. And it was free rhyme, and I was like, some of those ooh sounds, you know, those sharp U sounds or double O sounds. I don't want to go with goo all the time. I don't want to go with ooze all the time. I don't want to, man, I know there's all kinds of different terminology in the medical field, but is it too technical? Am I going to lose people if I use some? It's like using the word excretion to rhyme, you know, an excretion. It's like Lilliputian, you know. You'll have some similar words, but it's not going to work. Excretion, secretion, completion. It's like, yeah, there's some words like that, but I don't want to use excretion. You know, it's going to sound like something coming out of the body, the lower half. I didn't want to use that. I want to use the upper half, rotting away, spewing, dripping, oozing, you know, spewing. And spewing is not always used, but it's often used enough where people know, oh, spewing, like spitting. Yeah. I'm spewing a lot of blood out of my mouth. Okay. Not to sound graphic, but because something bad happened here, I'm spewing a lot of blood out of my mouth and I might die. Spewing. A fire hose spews water. And we use a negative connotation because it's not, water is looked at as a good thing. It's jetting water. It's gushing water. We don't say spewing, but it's the same thing. All this water is effusing out of the hose. Okay. So I used effusing before. But anyways, Floozy Rose spewing a clue, CLEU, a glob of worms. That's what I wanted to put in there. We don't use that word enough. I don't care if those hypercritical writers out there or editors or whoever you are say, well, a lot of people might not know that word. So you're bringing in an older archaic word. It's not archaic. It's just hardly ever used. How many times do we ever talk about worms in particular in print? Unless it has to do with a cadaver and burial ground and, you know, inside a rotten coffin. All those worms are clue. CLEW. Floozy Rose spewing a clue of glue. There it goes, the tongue twister. Floozy Rose spewing a clue of goo from her mucose rack. So, mucose, just goose come, I think, you know, mucosa. I've heard before, but mucose rack, meaning her upper body is just, you know, spewing out that clue of worms and clue of goo, you know, slimy worms. So anyways, that was my reading of the unfinished work, Quiet Insanity and the Wet Marines Epiphany. And I'm going to give it, I said this in an earlier video, and I might have taken down the video already because the screen just went dead, and I checked all the connections and they were fine. Maybe I tightened them more. And that was the difference this time around. But I don't know what happened to the screen. It didn't overheat. And it's not overheating now. It's doing great. So that's what I like to do. I'll put it on paper, do a reading, keep it simple. I don't want anything online except for my phone. Because I don't want to pay astronomical bills for a lot of things that I could do if I wasn't employable, if I didn't have a job. But I like working, okay? And I hand it to people that love their channels on YouTube or they're on Facebook and they do their comedy. More power to them. But, hey, maybe you guys can give me some kudos, too, for the fact that the words do my work. Okay, who's better? Who's more technical? You know, I can do some slapstick too. If I had time to set up some camera angles, camera shots, and splice and dice. I don't want to do that. That doesn't enthrall me. Writing the perfect horror piece of poetry or novella or novel is what I want to do. And I hope this video helps out people in general. And if they're starting out writing, they have some input. Oh, let's get back to this because it is a pet peeve. Some critiquing that I've done more recently. You know, when you use other symbols in your poetry, to me, it cheapens it. And one of the critiques I had for one person that did their poetry, they had a good premise, but then there was all kinds of different stuff in there. Okay? And I think she even took down some of it, but then she got personal. She was like, you can just roll on by next time or keep on scrolling by or whatever that people always say. And it's like, nah. You're on an open forum and you post your poetry there. I'm not going to just say all the time, hey, good job. That's it. Okay. It was a good job. I even said that in the critique. However, it took me a while because I came back for it when I started seeing these arrow signs, greater than, less than, in between the words, and all this other bullshit she didn't need just to look cool. It's like, your words are not the art, like you're drawing a picture with the words themselves. I get that, like a pictogram. Okay? Your poem was better than that. So why cheapen it with bullshit? Like you're a third-rate freaking poet. I know what I'm talking about. You got punctuation. Fucking use that right first. It's there for a reason. So I went all the way down to the end where I had the quote. Because I wrote it perfectly. I wrote it the way I knew it's done perfect. I'll devour you whole before you know I own your soul. Comma, end quote. She said, comma, because she's going to continue her diatribe harassing the main character. Okay, that comma. If I would have put a period there and then another freestanding quote, which I have accidentally done before, then what is it? Him talking to her now? Those punctuation marks are there for a reason. And theoretically, because there's a line spacing, I put a capital A there. And wherever you go, that's where it will flow until your marrow's bled. But that comma says it all. And with that space, I didn't want confusion. So maybe when I'm proofing this again, I will look at it and I'll put a lowercase and wherever. That and word, I might do lowercase so that it's even more perfect. And you know it's not the patriarch speaking to the ghost. My point is, it's not a lot of added bullshit. And you can figure it out if you read it. That's what professionals do. Professionals don't have to really clarify how they write. They also get paid for it. Being elite. So they don't have to talk anymore. Be that professional, like I know I am. Or I wouldn't put a comma right there. I'd put a period. And then there would be confusion in the next quoted verse. So anyways, the ad hominem attacks. It's like, you don't like it, next time you can just scroll on by. You read my work. Like, no, you had good work. And so you entice me to read your fucking shit. And the words started to lose their meaning because of all the bullshit you put around them. And another thing, it's like putting these little flower designs and stuff like that in between stuff you write, but they're off to the side, kind of like it's a greeting card of some sort. That's okay if that's a header for something you're posting, but not your own professional work on Facebook. Are you saying you're a graphic artist, or are you saying you're a poet? I have no problem with you doing it because you want to. I really don't. But it cheapens your word work. And you're a poet, not a painter. You're a wordsmith. I am that professional, and I'm willing to learn more. I never said that I'm the professional that knows everything, but I know punctuation. Keep it simple, stupid. As the saying goes. But anyways, I wanted to bring that up. It wasn't to berate her. She had a cute poem. And then I had to come back to it because I was like, what are these greater than, lesser than, freaking signs everywhere? It's stupid. Please don't do that. Use the minimum amount of punctuation and let your words do the work for you. That's what makes a wordsmith. You can even debate that not even the punctuation, perfect punctuation, makes the wordsmith. The words do, and I would agree with you. The punctuation has its own parameters that can help you so much. Keep it simple. Do it right the first time. Stop being the graphic artist. You're a wordsmith. You're a poetess. God. Anyways, that was a little pet peeve I had, and I didn't appreciate the retort after my critique. Because I gave her kudos for the words. Wasn't trying to be a hard ass. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this reading, and God bless you, and I hope you have I'll just say this. It's nice to have some free time on the weekend on a Saturday and do a reading instead of Sunday, knowing that Monday was right around the corner, and oh my God. So it's nice to do a video on a Saturday and chill and discuss some of these things, you know. So thank you for having me. Have a great weekend, guys. Be safe out there.